Welcome to HFY Galaxy Tales. To enjoy HFY stories, like this video and subscribe the channel. Listen, I have witnessed approximately 3,412 things in my career as a documentation officer for the Galactic Educational Exchange Program. Most of them boring. Painfully, soul-crushingly boring. Young beings from various species traveling to observe other civilizations, taking notes, pretending they care about agricultural techniques or governmental structures or whatever tedium their professors assigned them to study. But this was not boring. My name is Vex, and I work for the Interstellar Academic Coordination Council. Yes, I know, riveting stuff. My job involves babysitting university students from across the galaxy while they conduct their mandatory cultural observation assignments. Think of me as a glorified tour guide with tentacles and far too much responsibility. The day everything changed started like any other rotation. I had a group of 15 students from Proxima Tech scheduled to visit Earth. Yes, that Earth. The little blue marble populated entirely by those bizarre primates who somehow stumbled into space travel despite having only 2 arms and absolutely no telepathic capabilities whatsoever. The students were typical. Bored. Entitled. Already planning which recreational substances they would consume once the assignment ended. We materialized in what the humans call Montana, near some enormous stretch of golden vegetation the locals grow for sustenance. Wheat, I believe they call it. Honestly, the fact that they still manually harvest plant matter for nutrition is adorable in a primitive sort of way. Remember, I announced to my group of ungrateful youngsters, we are here purely for observation. No interference. No communication. Our cloaking fields will keep us invisible to the local population. A student named Krill, a 6-limbed centaurian with an attitude problem, groaned audibly. How long do we have to watch dirt farmers again? 3 standard hours, I replied, resisting the urge to smack him with my documentation pad. And they prefer to be called agricultural workers. That's when she appeared. A human female, approximately 22 solar cycles old according to my scanner, emerged from one of those primitive combustion-powered vehicles they still use. She had dark hair pulled back in what humans call a ponytail, wearing their typical casual clothing, blue leg coverings and a faded shirt with some band logo I did not recognize. Her name was Torres. I know because I later accessed their primitive internet database. She was a graduate student in environmental science from some institution called UC Davis. She had come to this remote location to collect soil samples for her thesis research. How perfectly mundane, right? Wrong. Scan her, I instructed my assistant, a floating orb named Pip who handles all the technical readings. Standard human physiology, Pip reported in that annoyingly cheerful voice of his. Nothing remarkable. Moderate stress hormones, probably from academic pressure. Elevated caffeine levels. Normal bone density. Typical specimen. Typical. Ha! If only we had known. Maya walked into that wheat field with her collection kit, completely unaware that 15 invisible aliens were watching her every move. She knelt down, started taking samples, humming some tune to herself. My students were already losing interest, which was fine by me. The sooner they got bored, the sooner we could leave. Then the sky ripped open. I am not speaking metaphorically here. The actual sky, the atmospheric layer above us, tore apart like cheap fabric. A massive vessel, easily 3 kilometers in length, materialized directly above the field. It was Kryloth design. Even from this distance, I could see the distinctive plasma cannons and harvesting equipment. Oh no, I whispered, which in my language sounds like gargling gravel. Oh no, no, no. What is that? One of my students shrieked. Slavers, I said, my primary heart sinking into what humans would call my stomach. Illegal raiders. They are not supposed to be here. Earth is protected territory. The Kryloth do not care about protected territory. They are scavengers, criminals, operating outside galactic law. They arrive on developing worlds, stun the local population, harvest whoever they want, and sell them at black market stations. Earth, with its large population of relatively strong primates, had become an attractive target despite the strict prohibitions. I immediately activated my emergency beacon, but I knew help would not arrive for at least half a standard cycle. Too long. The harvester ship began deploying collection drones, dozens of them, sleek metal insects programmed to stun and capture. They would take everyone within a 50-kilometer radius, Maya included. She had noticed the ship now. Of course she had. Kind of hard to miss a 3-kilometer vessel blocking out the sun. She stood up slowly, soil samples forgotten, staring upward with her mouth open in what I recognized as human shock. "Run!" I shouted, forgetting she could not hear me through the cloaking field. "Why are you not running?" But Maya did not run. Instead, she pulled out her communication device, her phone, and started recording. Recording. As if documenting her own abduction would somehow help matters. The first wave of drones descended, moving at incredible speed. They would reach her in approximately 14 seconds. I had seen this happen before on other worlds. There was nothing I could do. Interfering directly violated at least 47 different regulations, and would likely start an interstellar incident. I started composing my incident report in my head. Would lead with something appropriately somber. 10 seconds. Maya pocketed her phone. Then she did something I still cannot adequately explain. She bent down and picked up a rock. Not a weapon. Not some advanced human defense technology one had somehow missed in my research. A rock. A piece of planetary debris roughly the size of her fist. "What is she doing?" Pip asked. "I have absolutely no idea," I admitted. 5 seconds. The lead drone reached her position, extending its capture appendages, electrical stunning field already activating. Maya waited until it was approximately 2 meters away, then she threw that rock with a speed and accuracy that made my sensor equipment briefly malfunction because surely those readings could not be correct. The rock struck the drone's central processing unit with such force that the entire machine exploded into component pieces. She threw a rock, and it destroyed a military-grade capture drone. "Impossible," Krill muttered. "Agreed," I replied, equally stunned. But Maya was not finished. Not even close. 3 more drones approached from different angles, thinking they could overwhelm her through superior numbers. Adorable, really. She grabbed more rocks, it seems this field had plenty of them, and began throwing with systematic precision. Each throw resulted in 1 destroyed drone. Her accuracy was perfect. Her timing was flawless. Within 30 seconds, she had eliminated 7 drones using nothing but rocks and apparently some kind of latent human ability we had completely failed to document. "Are humans always this dangerous?" one of my students asked, pressing himself against the cloaking field boundary. "According to all our research, absolutely not," I said, checking my database frantically. "They are supposed to be moderately capable predators with decent endurance but nothing exceptional." The Kryloth ship noticed that its drones were being systematically destroyed by a single target. I watched as it recalculated strategy, pulling back the remaining collection units and instead deploying something much worse, a Type 7 combat unit. These are not capture devices. These are military weapons designed to eliminate threats to harvesting operations. It stood nearly 4 meters tall, heavily armored, equipped with energy weapons that could vaporize a human in seconds. It dropped from the ship and landed in the wheat field approximately 50 meters from Maya's position. The impact created a small crater. The wheat around it immediately caught fire from residual heat. Maya stared at this mechanical nightmare, and I swear by all the nebulae in the cosmos, she smiled. Actually smiled. "She has lost her mind," Pip observed. Stress-induced psychological break. But her eyes did not look insane. They looked focused. Calculating. The combat unit raised its primary weapon, targeting systems locking onto her biological signature. It would fire in approximately 3 seconds. There was nowhere for her to run, nowhere to hide in that flat, open field. She ran directly toward it. Directly. Toward it. Did she not receive the standard prey response programming? I asked no one in particular. Is fleeing from large predators not supposed to be instinctive? Apparently not for Maya Torres. The combat unit fired its energy weapon. A sustained beam that should have reduced her to constituent atoms. But Maya had already moved, dropping into what I later learned humans call a slide, like in their baseball sport, passing directly under the beam at the last possible microsecond. She came up directly beneath the combat unit's chassis, inside its weapon range, too close for it to target effectively. Then she did something that made every single one of my students gasp in synchronized horror. She jumped, grabbed onto its armor plating with her bare hands, and climbed it like some kind of feral primate, which technically she is, but still. The combat unit tried to shake her off, spinning, thrashing, activating defensive electric fields. Maya held on, pulling herself higher, apparently completely unbothered by the electricity that should have stunned her into unconsciousness. She reached its head section, where the primary processing core sits protected behind supposedly impenetrable armor, and she started punching it. Not shooting. Not using a tool. Punching with her small, soft human fists. And the armor started to crack. Her bone structure should be fracturing. Pip protested, running continuous scans. The force required to damage that plating should be shattering her skeletal system. But Maya kept punching, over and over, each impact creating larger cracks in the armor, her face set in an expression of absolute determination. Blood ran down her knuckles. She did not seem to notice or care. The combat unit finally managed to grab her with one of its articulated arms, pulling her away from its head and throwing her approximately 12 meters through the air. She hit the ground hard, rolled, and came up on her feet already scanning for her next move. That should have been the end. She was injured, bleeding, facing an opponent that outweighed her by at least 300 kilograms of reinforced combat machinery. Instead, Maya grabbed a piece of broken drone from the ground, something with a sharp edge, and charged again. The combat unit fired repeatedly, energy beams scorching the earth around her, but she moved like liquid, like she could predict exactly where each shot would go, dodging and weaving through the assault with impossible grace. She reached the machine again, and this time, she used the drone fragment as a blade, jamming it directly into the cracks she had created with her fists, prying them wider, tearing through synthetic muscle and data cables like some kind of mechanical surgeon performing the galaxy's most violent operation. The combat unit made a sound I had never heard before, something between a mechanical scream and a system failure alert. Maya climbed higher, reached directly into the opening she had created, and pulled out its central processing core with her bare hands. The massive machine collapsed like a puppet with cut strings. Maya stood on top of its chassis, breathing hard, covered in blood and dirt and machine fluid, holding a sparking processor core like some kind of primitive trophy. And that is when the Kryloth ship decided she was too dangerous to harvest. It began charging its main cannon. The weapon designed to destroy small spacecraft and fortified positions. Aimed directly at one graduate student standing in a weak field. I made a decision that will probably end my career. Drop the cloaking field, I ordered. But the regulations. Pip protested. Do it now. The field collapsed, revealing our entire group to Maya and, more importantly, to the Kryloth scanners. Suddenly, they had a different problem. 15 witnesses from the galactic academic system watching them commit an illegal raid on protected territory. The Kryloth ship hesitated. I could practically feel their sensors sweeping over us, calculating risk versus reward. On one hand, they could complete their harvest. On the other hand, killing official galactic observers would bring the entire enforcement fleet down on their operation within hours. Maya spun around at our sudden appearance, still holding that processor core, her eyes widening as she took in 15 very visible, very alien students and one extremely stressed documentation officer. "Hello," I said in what I hoped was a calming tone, activating my translation matrix. "Please do not be alarmed. We are academics, not threats." "Well, except apparently you are the threat here, which I honestly did not see coming." She blinked at me. Then at my students, who were all attempting to hide behind each other despite now being completely visible. Then back at me. "Are you," she paused, wiping blood from her face with her non-processor holding hand, "are you here for the soil samples too?" I almost laughed. Here she stood, having just destroyed a military combat unit with her bare hands, surrounded by aliens, with a slaver ship hovering overhead preparing to either flee or commit mass murder, and she asked about soil samples. "Not exactly," I replied. "We were observing your agricultural practices for educational purposes. Then these criminals showed up to abduct your people, which is very illegal, and you decided to personally declare war on their entire operation using rocks and determination." "Oh," Maya said, looking down at the destroyed machinery around her as if only now realizing what she had done. "I thought they were trying to hurt people." "They absolutely were," I confirmed. "You stopped them. Quite violently. It was impressive and terrifying." The Kryloth ship made its decision. Its engines began powering up for departure, apparently deciding that one human who could destroy their combat units was not worth the additional complications we represented. But before they could leave, something else happened. Something that made my second heart stop completely. More ships appeared. Not reinforcements for the slavers. Not galactic enforcement coming to save the day. Human military vessels. Apparently, when a 3-kilometer alien ship appears above Montana, their primitive detection systems actually do notice. Who knew? Their response time was remarkable, honestly. Several fighter craft, moving fast, weapons armed, ready to defend their territory. "Oh no," I whispered. "This is escalating poorly." The human pilots could see everything now. The massive slaver ship. The destroyed drones scattered across the field. The dead combat unit. Maya standing on top of it covered in blood and holding alien technology. And 15 very visible aliens standing in a defensive cluster. And naturally, their first assumption was that we were all together. That we were all part of the raiding party. "Attention unknown vessels," came a voice through what I recognized as radio communication, primitive but functional. "You are in violation of United States airspace. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." "This is bad," Pip announced helpfully. "This is very bad. I am aware." I snapped back. Attempted communication protocol. I activated every broadcasting frequency I could access. "Attention human defenders. We are not hostile. We are academic observers. The large ship is the enemy, not us. We are on your side." The fighters did not respond to me. They were focused on the Kryloth vessel, which was now actively charging weapons to fight its way out. The slavers had apparently decided that since they were already caught, they might as well go down fighting. Maya, still standing on her mechanical trophy, assessed the situation with remarkable speed. She raised her free hand, waving at the human fighters, then pointed emphatically at the Kryloth ship. "They are the bad guys," she shouted, as if the pilots could hear her over the sound of jet engines. "Not the tentacle people. Shoot the big ship." I appreciated her advocacy, truly, but I doubted her voice would carry that far. Then Maya did something that still haunts my reports. She picked up a piece of drone, approximately the size of her torso, and threw it at the Kryloth ship. It traveled nearly 80 meters through the air before striking the ship's hull with a resonant clang that somehow carried across the distance. Did she just throw debris at a capital ship? Krill asked, his voice climbing several octaves. She absolutely did, I confirmed, recalculating every assumption I had ever made about human capabilities. The gesture apparently communicated her intentions clearly enough. The human fighters adjusted their targeting, locking onto the Kryloth vessel instead of us. The first missile struck the ship's shield array, creating a spectacular light show. The slavers returned fire, energy weapons cutting through the sky, attempting to hit the agile fighter craft. They missed. Human pilots, it turns out, are quite good at not being hit. Thousands of years of killing each other apparently creates excellent combat reflexes. We need to leave, I announced to my students. Immediately. This is no longer an observation mission. This is a war zone. But what about her? One of my students asked, pointing at Maya, who was now trying to coordinate with the human military using improvised hand signals and occasional thrown objects to indicate targeting priorities. She, I said, watching Maya point at a specific section of the Kryloth ship's hull where the shield generator was located, information she somehow intuited from looking at the vessel for approximately 90 seconds, will be absolutely fine. Another human fighter made a pass, launching missiles at exactly the spot Maya had indicated. The shield generator exploded in a cascade of sparks and radiation. The Kryloth ship's defensive barrier collapsed entirely. How did she know where to target? Pip asked. I have no idea, I admitted. Add it to the list of things about this human that make no sense. The Kryloth captain must have realized the situation was unwinnable. Their ship began attempting an emergency jump to faster-than-light speeds, trying to flee before the humans could completely destroy them. Maya was not having it. She jumped down from the combat unit chassis, ran to where one of the intact drones had fallen, and started examining it with the focus of someone who had never seen alien technology before but was determined to figure it out anyway. Within seconds, and I timed this, literally seconds, she had identified the power cell, removed it, and was holding what amounted to a grenade filled with concentrated energy. She would not, I said. She absolutely would, Pip replied. Maya wound up like an athlete, and I remembered reading something about humans having a sport where they throw small spheres at high speeds over significant distances. Baseball, I think. She had apparently played this sport. She threw the power cell directly at the Kryloth ship's engine array, visible now that the shields were down, a throw that traveled at least 200 meters through the air, accounting for wind resistance and the target's movement. The power cell struck the primary engine intake. The explosion was visible from space, or so I was told later. The entire rear section of the Kryloth ship detonated, sending debris raining down across several square kilometers. The vessel began spiraling downward, crash-landing in an adjacent field with enough force to register on seismic equipment across 3 states. The human fighters circled the crash site, weapons still armed, ensuring no survivors emerged to cause additional problems. Maya stood in her wheat field, breathing hard, covered in increasingly concerning amounts of blood, both hers and synthetic, watching the smoke rise from the destroyed slaver ship. Then she turned to look at us, at my group of terrified students and one very overwhelmed documentation officer. So, she said, walking toward us with remarkable calm considering everything that had just happened, you said you were academics. Correct, I managed. Galactic Educational Exchange Program. We observe developing civilizations. Usually much more boring than this. Cool, Maya replied, as if this was a normal conversation. Do you need medical attention? You look kind of stressed. I look stressed. You are bleeding from multiple lacerations and possibly have fractured bones. Maya glanced down at her hands, noticing the damage for apparently the first time. Oh. Yeah, that probably needs stitches. Do you guys have advanced medical technology, or should I just drive to the hospital? Before I could answer, military vehicles arrived on the ground, surrounding our position. Soldiers emerged, weapons ready, shouting instructions in English about getting on the ground and putting hands where they could see them. They think we are hostiles, I explained to Maya, raising all my appendages in what I hoped was a universal gesture of surrender. Maya stepped between us and the soldiers. Hold on. They are not the bad guys. They helped. The bad guys are over there on fire. A commanding officer approached, scanning the scene with obvious confusion. Destroyed alien technology, smoking wreckage in the distance, one bleeding graduate student, and 15 very alien academics trying to look non-threatening. "Ma'am," the officer said to Maya, "can you explain what exactly happened here?" "Sure," Maya replied with remarkable composure. "So I was collecting soil samples, right? Then that big ship showed up trying to kidnap people. I stopped them. Then these academic aliens appeared and also helped. Then your fighters showed up and blew up the kidnappers. Team effort, really. You stopped them," the officer repeated slowly. "You stopped an alien invasion. I mean, I would not call it an invasion exactly. More like an attempted robbery. But yes, I threw rocks at their robots until they stopped working." The officer stared at her. Then at the destroyed combat unit. Then back at her. "Ma'am, that machine weighs over 300 kilograms and is designed to withstand anti-tank weapons." "Yeah, but the armor had weak points," Maya explained, as if this was obvious. "You just had to hit them really hard multiple times. Basic problem solving." I watched this interaction, documenting everything, knowing my report would be read and reread by confused bureaucrats across the galaxy. The humans eventually decided we were, in fact, not hostile invaders. They separated us for questioning, which I expected. My students were terrified, which I also expected. What I did not expect was for Maya to insist on staying with us, refusing medical treatment until she made sure we were not going to be dissected or imprisoned. "They are academics," she told every human authority figure who would listen. "They have students. You cannot hurt students." The protective instinct was touching, if unnecessary. The humans were actually quite professional once they understood the situation. Over the following hours, representatives from multiple human governments arrived. So did, eventually, the Galactic Enforcement Fleet, 3 hours late as I predicted. They found a situation already resolved by one human and some very confused exchange students. The story spread quickly. Across human networks, across galactic communication systems, faster than light itself somehow. By the next planetary rotation, everyone knew about the human graduate student who defeated a Kryloth raiding party with rocks and improvisation. The Galactic Council opened official first contact with Earth 6 months ahead of schedule. The humans used Maya as their primary representative, which seemed fitting. She showed up to the first meeting wearing formal clothing but still managed to project the same terrifying competence she had demonstrated in that wheat field. My students wrote the most popular assignment papers in academic exchange history. Krill actually thanked me, which I did not think was possible. As for Maya, the humans started calling her the Protector. Not officially, not in any governmental capacity, but the name stuck anyway. She finished her thesis on soil composition, graduated with honors, and currently works as an agricultural consultant. She also serves as an informal liaison between Earth and the galactic community. Turns out, having someone who can destroy combat units with hand-thrown rocks makes for excellent diplomatic leverage. I still compile reports on human capabilities, updating our databases, trying to understand how we missed so much. The truth is simpler than our scientists want to admit. Humans are not exceptionally strong or fast compared to other species. They are not telepathic or technologically advanced. What they are, apparently, is absolutely terrifying when sufficiently motivated. And Maya Torres, collecting soil samples on what should have been a boring afternoon in Montana, was very, very motivated. I visited her once, several months later, bringing my new group of students to observe human society. Maya was back in her field, collecting more samples, humming another tune. "Still just studying dirt?" I asked. She smiled, that same focused smile from before. "Someone has to understand how to grow food. Pretty important for civilization. More important than fighting alien slavers." "I only fight those on weekdays," she replied. Soil research is my actual job. I laughed, which in my language sounds like grinding metal. If you ever want a position with the galactic academic system, we would hire you immediately. Thanks, but I am happy here. Besides, someone needs to protect this place. And there it was. Not arrogance. Not bravado. Just simple, absolute certainty that she would defend her world if needed. I filed my report that evening. Subject: Human defensive capabilities. Conclusion: do not threaten Earth. Ever. The report was marked as essential reading for all galactic military personnel. Because somewhere in Montana, a graduate student with a rock collection and absolutely zero quit in her entire biology was still taking soil samples. And that, somehow, was the most terrifying thing in the galaxy.